Ladies and gentlemen, Emperor Qin Shi Huang is finally here in Rise of Kingdoms. So today we're going to go over everything you need to know, the best commander pairs, and my first impressions of Emperor Qin Shi Huang. And then later in the video I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a health update, because as you might have already noticed, I probably sound a little bit weird. So if this video is a little bit lower energy or if my voice is off, I do apologize. I'm still really sick. But before we jump in, of course, what's going on, guys? Cheers. All right, so as you can see, I did actually instantly max Emperor Qin because his damage output is absolutely through the roof. And let me just say right up front, if you look at any 1v1 test result for Emperor Qin, you are not getting the full picture at all whatsoever. I think that is understood by most people, right? Most people understand that he is mainly an AoE commander, but I don't know if people quite understand just how much AoE damage he is outputting. Just for a little bit of foreshadowing here, if you pair Emperor Qin with Zhuge Liang or with YSG, you're gonna have more AoE damage output, so we're talking damage per second here, than Bai Qi with Liu Che, which is insane because everyone knows that this is like the best commander pairing in the game. Now, am I sitting here saying that Emperor Qin with Zhuge Liang is better than Bai Qi Liu Che? No, I'm not, but I'm saying from a pure DPS perspective, they're better, which is not immediately apparent by looking at this kit. And on the topic of Emperor Qin's kit, let me just touch on the active skill 1 conquers 6. I know some people thought that this would be a 6 target AoE. It would make sense based on the name and also the way that it's worded. Some people thought that it would be a 6 target AoE. I did reach out to creator support. They confirmed that this is not a 6 target AoE. The way that this works is that when you deal damage with Iron Pierce's bronze, the Eternal Emperor effect will deal the 60% damage to 5 other nearby armies. So the Iron Pierce's bronze deals damage to your target. 1 Conqueror 6's Eternal Emperor effect deals damage to 5 other targets. So in order to get the maximum benefit out of 1 Conquer 6, there actually has to be 6 targets near you, because the target that you're actively hitting will not be affected by 1 Conquer 6. So I just wanted to clear that up. Okay, now I know some of you actually were asking before Emperor Qin came into the game if I was going to do a pre-release video, and fun fact, I actually have one that is fully edited, ready to go. But because I got sick and because I actually was not paying attention to the release date of Emperor Qin, by the time the video was ready, he came out like 4 hours later, and so I thought, like, who actually cares, right? However, one of the things that I learned from my pre-release testing, as you guys know, the Rock Murder Ball tester does allow you to do a multi-target mode, which lets you just purely test AoE damage per second. And I honestly think that this pre-release test was more insightful to me than any of the early tests that I've seen on YouTube already, because it just tests one thing in a vacuum, which is how much damage he can actually deal on the board. Now, of course, I am in KVK right now, which is why I instantly maxed Emperor Qin, because I will be using him in my upcoming fights. So I'm excited to get some hands-on experience very soon here in game. So if anything changes, I'll give you guys an updated video on that. But let me share with you guys some of the things that I learned, just so that way you guys can get an idea of where I'm coming from. And of course, if you guys are looking for 1v1 results, I know Chisco did some live streams and he's probably going to post a video very soon, so check that out on this channel. I was like in bed fighting for my life with a fever, and I was trying to like listen to his stream to see what exactly was going on, but I was struggling, but I'll talk about it in a little bit. Anyway, roll the clip.
Okay, now let's move on to the AoE damage test. And what this is, as you can see on the screen, is 1 army versus 5 of the Pilferer unit in Rise of Kingdoms, and these are effectively test dummies. Okay, they do basic attacks to your army, they do have an active skill, but really they're not outputting a ton of damage. As you can see here, the damage output and the damage taken by Emperor Qin is quite low. So what I've tested here is 10 minutes of us attacking this one target and our AoE hitting everything around us. Okay, with all that being said, let's take a look at the results. So a 10-minute pounding of these test dummies, you will see that we dealt 32.6 million damage in those 10 minutes. Here we have the sev wounds on both sides. Again, the sev wound taken is kind of irrelevant. The next thing we tested was we did Huo Arthur, just to see sort of a baseline, right? Like how does this compare to this? And as you can see, Emperor Qin with Zhuge Liang deals way more damage in 10 minutes than the Huo Arthur, and this is why single target damage commanders are so bad in Rise of Kingdoms, right? Everyone's talking about, oh, Nevsky this, Nevsky that. Nah, bro, nah, I'm sorry. The damage output falls off an absolute cliff because only one of these commanders is hitting multiple targets. Okay, and also King Arthur is only a 3 target AoE command. Next, I pulled in Bai Qi with Liu Che. Both of these are 5 target AoE commanders, and as you can see, we have 25.4 million damage dealt, so still more damage than the Huo King Arthur, but still way less damage than the Emperor Qin with Zhuge Liang. So I was very confused about that. So I ran the test again, and it's still 26.1 million damage dealt. So what we can see here is that the Emperor Qin Zhuge Liang deals crazy damage. Okay, crazy damage output. Even when we're looking at basically the best army in the game for AoE, it's dealing even more than that. And this is why it's important to do not just the 1v1 test results, but also do a quick damage check to see how much damage are you pumping out of these commanders, right? Then I put YSG in the secondary slot, and things got even crazier. So Emperor Qin with YSG, same exact parameters here, you'll notice deals 36.5 million damage. Now he does take more damage as well, so yeah, damage output goes through the roof here. You become slightly more squishy, but like that is one heck of a trade-off. Let's go over what I think the best commander pairs are going to be for archers. So if you're going to run a single archer march, I think the answer is there's a couple of different choices you have. I think the Zhuge Liang is still the most obvious and the safest, and the reason for this is because we also have to take into account that the Zhuge Liang is going to be a little bit more tanky than the YSG, and he also has a massive debuff on the active skill, which is insane, right? It is like one of the best active skills. He also can't be affected by control effects, so there's a lot of other things under the hood and that aren't really shown in the AoE check that make Zhuge Liang just really, really good, right? So you have to keep that in mind. If you're running a single archer pairing, I think this is probably it. But the question is, if you're running two archers, what do you actually do here, right? Well, I think it's going to come down to how good this commander pairing is, right? If this is so unbelievably game breaking that you cannot separate them, then you would do maybe something like Herman with YSG, or you would do something like Herman with Ashurbanipal, and then you are good to go. I personally would lean more towards this, but let's assume that this pairing can be broken up, right? Because I think that it will. I think that these like they're not like made for each other, right? I think that they probably can do fine if you break them apart. And if you do that, then what is the correct answer? Well, I think the correct answer is this. This is probably the two best archer marches in the game. That is my best guess. You might, depending on how squishy YSG actually is, maybe we test it with something like Ashurbanipal or whatever, but like Ashurbanipal ain't super tanky himself, you know what I mean? So that's definitely something to consider. Then the question is like, okay, Philip, right? Well, it's hard to test Philip because he's more of an instant proc and support commander, and so it's kind of pointless to test them in like a DPS check. Like it is what it is. If you do want to use the Philip, what I would say is maybe you would do something like this, right? That could also be a really strong two army lineup. You get a little bit more march speed on the Zhuge Liang here with the Philip, and he's just more tanky and has the instant proc, and then you run the Emperor Qin with the Herman Prime. And I think Herman Prime is, people were starting to think that he was gonna fall out of the meta, and I've consistently said that I don't think that's the case. Obviously, yes, there's less skill damage in the game right now because of infantry going towards smite and cavalry going towards combo, but as an archer player, you're still all in on skill damage, right? And because of that, Herman's poison is still super good on the battlefield. So I think this is another strong contender for the two best archer marches in the game. Okay, that being said, I still think that like from a pure damage perspective, I'm putting my money on this. I think this is probably the best way to go. And then if we're talking about a 3 archer lineup, right, you're running 3 different archer armies, then I think we definitely pull in the Philip here and we do something like this. I think this is probably the play. Whether you do primary for Herman or Ashurbanipal, I'm not really sure. I don't know exactly how most archer players play that. I'm pretty sure Ashurbanipal is the primary there for the skill tree, but yeah, I think this is probably going to be your best 3 army lineup for archers in Rise of Kingdoms once Emperor Qin comes into the game. You might flip these around depending on how things go, and if you have clearly one set of really good gear and then one set of really bad gear, maybe you just do it like this. But obviously this army is going to be really slow then because you have a lot less march speed on Ashurbanipal than you do on Emperor Qin, right? So honestly, I think this is the best spread of march speed. Still a bummer that we have no march speed on 2 of these archers though. Like that really stinks.
So that was just some of the tests that I did with Emperor Qin before he came into the game and the conclusions that I arrived at before he even came into the game. And as it turns out, some of the early reports are lining up exactly with what I discovered, and so that video would have been super helpful if I was able to release it before he actually landed in the game. But regardless, since I have fighting coming up and since he is appearing to be super strong, I instantly maxed him, and I am going to be pairing him primarily with my Zhuge Liang, but I am definitely tempted to test him with Yi Seong-Gye because the skill damage output is just ridiculous here. Like with the 30% defense here, the 20% health, and the 20% defense on YSG, it's like not even that squishy either. So I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I just wanted to share all that information because again, the 1v1 test results with Emperor Qin are not going to blow your socks off. They're not going to be game changing, right? But that is literally by design. He is made to be an AoE commander. He is made to withstand swarms and trade okay. Obviously you're not going to trade positive if you're 5x swarmed, but you'll trade better than your Zhuge Liang with Herman for sure. Okay, so now that we're near the end of the video, let me give you guys a little bit of a health update. If you guys saw over on my community page, I did post the other day that I tested positive for COVID, which is kind of insane in 2025. If you guys missed that post, you're probably not subbed, so go ahead and sub if you care about that stuff. But I want to share the story with you guys really quick because I do think that it is important. But basically on Tuesday, I had the back of my tongue was kind of sore, and I thought it was a bit bizarre, but I do remember a few days prior to that, I did burn my tongue on some taquitos, so shout out to taquitos. But yeah, I burned my tongue, and I thought, okay, well maybe like the burn just got like slightly infected or something like that, so maybe it's just that's why it's hurting again. I have no idea. So Tuesday I had a bit of a sore on the back of my tongue, and like I felt a little bit rough, but it wasn't too bad, so I took some ibuprofen and had a pretty much normal day. Woke up on Wednesday and it was still pretty sore. My throat was feeling a little bit weird. Took ibuprofen and then it was all right. I remember filming a video Wednesday morning for my second channel, which I posted I think on Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, I posted it Thursday. Today's Friday. I can't believe it's already Friday. Last few days have been an absolute blur. So I was still operating kind of like business as usual, but I just assumed that I had some sort of like small infection or something like that. I don't know. And then as Wednesday progressed later in the day, I noticed that my back was getting super achy, just like body aches and everything. And I took ibuprofen, right? And I noticed about an hour and a half later, it still wasn't better, which is bizarre for me. Like even when I'm regularly sick and I take ibuprofen, it usually makes me I feel better pretty quickly after, right? So about an hour and a half later, I noticed that my body was getting more and more achy, even though I had already taken medicine. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Something's off. Something's not right. And I remember that I had some expired COVID tests in my bathroom. Shout out to Omniarch who gave them to me a few months ago. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use it because why not? It's here. I might as well use it. So I tested and it came back positive. And I was like, okay, well, it is an expired test. So like maybe it's a false positive or something like that. So then, you know, I live in New York. So I ordered another COVID test, right? I ordered a brand new one and I did that COVID test and that one came back positive as well. And so I was like, what? Like I have COVID in 2025. That's crazy. And like, look, I know that it's like still a thing, right? I know that people still get it, but in New York City it's been 97 degrees this week and it's the summertime. Like this is like the least likely time to get sick, right? Which is what I thought, except I was texting my best friend and he said, yeah, my fiance is sick too. And I was like, okay, well, you should tell her that I just tested positive. She should test as well because she has the same symptoms as me. And then the next day she tests and she's positive as well. And like she works from home, I work from home. We don't really go anywhere, right? And again, it's 97 degrees, middle of summer. And yet myself and somebody that I know in my city had COVID at the exact same time, right? So then I Googled it and apparently there's a new strain that's been going around that's gotten more and more common in like May and June of this year. And so that kind of explains like I guess why more people are getting it right now. So I tested positive Wednesday evening, and later that night I was going to bed and I had a slight fever, but it was like 99.7 or something. It wasn't like horrible. It was just really uncomfortable. And so, you know, before I went to bed, I started to get more and more achy. So I took some more ibuprofen and I noticed that my fever continued to get worse. And my heart rate was actually going up. So I have an Apple Watch and you can kind of like keep track of your heart rate with the little EKG. It's like a 1 lead EKG thing. And I noticed that my heart rate was like 104, my resting heart rate. Like I was laying down for like 6 hours and I was just laying there 104 and I could feel like my heart was pumping, right? And so I started to get kind of nervous, you know what I mean? So like an hour later, I took 2 more ibuprofen, which I think is more than you're supposed to take in a single serving. 3 + 2, they're standard 200 milligrams. So, but either way, like I live alone, so I was getting a little bit desperate. So So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. So I took 2 more and I laid there for like an hour and a half, kind of just struggling, constantly checking my heart rate, constantly, you know, you could do a blood oxygen test on there as well. Luckily that was okay. And then eventually around like 1:30 in the morning, my fever finally broke and my heart rate came down, and it went down, my fever went down like again, like a slow fever, like a 99.7 or something like that. Yesterday was Thursday, woke up, still felt horrible, still had a fever, but I felt a little bit better than Wednesday night, which was good. I only got like 2.5 hours of sleep, to be honest with you, maybe less than that. And I was just hungry all day yesterday. I don't know why. I don't know if it was my immune system was like working overdrive and I was just like ravenous, but yeah, I was basically in bed all day yesterday, which was kind of rough. And then I remember around like around noon, I was going to make my second coffee, and I made it, and I'm drinking my coffee and I'm like, huh, it tastes a little bit off. Like it just tastes a little bit worse than usual. So I'm like looking at the expiration date of my creamer. I'm like, this is weird, but I don't really think anything of it, and then go about my day. My fever started to increase again last night. It went up to like 101.9 or something like that. So I took ibuprofen again, that brought it back down. And then right before bed, I went to go brush my teeth, and my toothpaste, I'm not kidding, my toothpaste tasted like soapy licorice, which is weird because it's just regular Crest whitening toothpaste, right? But it was like a strong licorice soap taste, and I was like, what the like, super bizarre, right? Because I mean, I used my toothpaste earlier that day and it tasted totally normal, so I knew it wasn't the toothpaste. So yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I brushed my teeth, went to bed, woke up this morning, today's Friday, and this was the first day in the last couple of days where I woke up without a fever, but I am still coughing a ton. My voice sounds weird, my tongue still, like my throat still hurts a little bit, so I'm not like fully out of the weeds, but I did just want to, you know, update you guys on how I'm feeling, how I'm doing. And also I just have been dying to talk about Emperor Chin because I've basically been bedridden for the last 2.5 days, and like it just perfectly lined up with his launch, which is like super annoying. And by the way, I made a coffee this morning and it tasted a little bit weird still, not as bad as yesterday, but it still tasted kind of funny. So I don't know what's going on there, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys this little bit of an update. I'm doing all right, I'll be fine, right? I'm 30, I'm young, I'm relatively healthy, I'll be fine, I'll be good. But that's where I've been the last couple of days. That's why there wasn't a pre-release video for Emperor Chin. That's why I didn't cover his release. What did he come out, yesterday or the day before, night before? I don't know. And I also wanted to give you this update to remind you guys to take care of yourself, keep an eye on your health, do what you got to do. And look, we're all adults here, so I know this topic is a little bit iffy. I trust that no one's going to get stupid and political down in the comments. All right, just take your health seriously, and I hope everyone's doing well. Hopefully my friend and I getting this at the same time is just some wild, weird cosmic coincidence, and hopefully it's not super common, and hopefully you guys don't end up getting it either. Anyway guys, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did, drop a thumbs up on it. It helps push this video into the YouTube algorithm so other Rise of Kingdoms players might see it. And comment down below your thoughts on Emperor Chin. What do you think about him? Do you think he's awesome? Do you not? And of course, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel and click the bell to be notified the next time I upload a video. And with that being said guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.